The True You, Mind, Body, and Spirit. Session 1, The Gift in You, with Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here. It really is. And thank you for coming to spend this time with me. I get so excited when I hear doctors talk about the frontal lobe because I'm a neuroscientist and that is my passion. And I mean, it's crazy to think that something that is as weird looking as your brain is a passion. But for 25 years, the brain has been my passion. And one of the things that has been a highlight in the research that I've done is identifying and understanding that each of us is gifted. Now, for years and years, over the centuries, man has always been searching for this elusive key of who am I and why am I on this earth? I mean, it's been a philosophy, it's been the philosophers have discussed this, debated this. Tonight, and in these sessions, I'm going to show you that you are gifted. I'm going to show you your true you, who you are. We're going to be discussing exactly what the gift is, what the structure of the gift, how to find your gift, what blocks our gifts, and how to just release the power and the divine potential that God has placed within us. So I'm really excited to share this with you and to help us. I've got lots of slides with lots of information. All of us were created for relationship with Christ. God created us for relationship, and deep down, placed in the core of our being is this absolute hunger that all of us have. It's like a cry from our heart. Does anyone out there understand me? It's a cry from all of our hearts. This desire to be understood, not just to be understood by ourselves, but for others to understand us. But also a lot of it deals with understanding ourselves. And God says, I do. He says, I do because I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. Now, I know you've heard that scripture before, but for me, that scripture is unbelievable because that means that God really did think about us. He really cared enough to actually say, I need you here at this time on planet Earth to do whatever it is that you can do. And there's something that you can do that God has placed within you that no one else in the world can do. And this has challenged my mind for all these years being a brain researcher. And I wanted to find out if this is, I know it's spiritually correct, and I know it's, and I wanted to see from a scientific perspective, what does this actually mean? That there's something unique that you can do, that I can do, that no one else can do. This whole gift that we have inside of us. Now, traditionally, when we talk about the concept of a gift, what we immediately think about is someone who's a brilliant mathematician, or someone who's like Einstein, or someone who's a great artist. And we tend to, the Bill Gates and the whatever, we tend to kind of put on a pedestal a few out there that are gifted. And then we kind of think, well, you know, am I that gifted? And I'm just going along, I'm just one of the few. Well, I want to tell you, this is the most exciting thing, that every single one of us on this planet is gifted, and that we can celebrate our giftedness. And it's not just the Einsteins and the Leonardo da Vinci's and the Bill Gates that are the gifted. It's all of us. Every single one of us has a gift. So behind this ability to do a great painting, create a great painting, or do whatever it is, play the piano really well, or be a great mathematician, there's something more and something deeper behind that. And in the research studies that I've done, I have discovered that there is an actual structure to our gift, and that our gift is not the manifestation, which is the piano playing or whatever. It is how we uniquely think. And if you go and track this in scripture, and I'm going to be tracking this for you over these next 4 segments, showing you how the spiritual principle that God says you're gifted is also a scientific principle. Now, science is just a tangible way of us understanding a spiritual truth. But it's exciting to see the parallels in science and in scripture. So let's have a look at a little bit more about this. Now, we'll see a slide up here. This is your brain, obviously, and this is your spinal cord, and that's you hanging out of there. Thank goodness we don't look like that. So this now, we're going to see this slide a lot over the next 4. So never be inundated or overwhelmed by an image of the brain, because the brain, if you can work your cell phone, you can work your brain. So it's really something God placed within us, and He wired it in such a way that we're supposed to be able to use it. And things like when Dr. Connor was talking about the frontal lobe, that really excites me, because I'm going to be telling you about your frontal lobe. In fact, you're using your frontal lobe a lot now as you're listening to me and standing outside of yourself and analyzing and thinking about the information that I'm giving you. Now, your frontal lobe is over here, and what we're going to be doing is looking at the whole concept of the structure of the gift and how it's wired into our brain. We're going to look at what this means inside the brain, and in language that you can understand, and we're going to show you how to find it. I'm going to show you how to actually find that. So you are a spirit. Your spirit is your true you. We know this. We know the triune being. So this is not something new for you, but hear the way I'm saying it, okay? You are a spirit. That is your true you, your unique everlasting, ever-present nature. Now, you have a soul, okay? So your soul is your mind, your brain, your intellect, your will, and your emotions. So your soul will give expression to the spirit. So the true you, the real you, is in your spirit. But God has given us this amazing brain that is quite phenomenal, which gives expression to our spirit. And now, as it gives expression to our spirit, it displays the uniqueness of who we are. There's about 6.7 billion people on the planet, which means that there are about 6.7 billion different yous. Okay, so each of us is the same. We can't categorize, we can't group, and we've tried to. Philosophers have tried to, scientists have tried to, psychologists have tried to. We have all these tests out there trying to group us into you, this type of personality, this type of person, but there aren't any categories because you are your own unique category, and science says the same thing. So your soul will express you, and you are completely unique, you are completely original. So then you have a body. Okay, so now what's very exciting is that this soul, this intellect, the will, and the emotions, this that gives expression to the spirit, we're going to see how this works in your brain. We're going to see how your you-ness, which is reflected in the gift, which is reflected in the way that we think, we're going to see this on a neurological level as well. We're going to see how this works in the brain. So you also then live in a body. We've got a triune nature. You are a spirit, you have a soul, and you live in a body. Your spirit is the true you. Your soul gives expression to the spirit, but your body manifests. So in your brain, all these thoughts are happening. All the thinking is going on. We're building up all these memories of life and of what we've been exposed to. And then we make decisions about these things in our head. But that's all still in our soul realm, dominated by our spirit, because our spirit is the you. And then it's our body that gives expression to this. So it's through our mouth that we speak. It's through our body movements that we do things. It's through our hands that we paint. It's through our body that we actually then express, or the body, we can say the body does the will of the spirit and the soul. So the spirit, soul, and body are linked. We can't separate them. And basically, if all of them work together, so if one is not working right, all of them are going to be affected. So Jesus said, I want you healed spirit, soul, and body. They are all linked, and we have to realize that if we can understand how we are thinking, and if we can understand the soul realm, we can also see what's going on in our spiritual realm, and we can see what's going on. We can often see this through what's happening in our body. Today, what the doctors are saying, and the medical researchers and scientists and neuroscientists are telling us, is that 87 to 95% of current physical and mental illnesses come from our thought life. So the things that we think about, the things that are going on in our heads, all these issues, all these thoughts, all these decisions that we are making have an impact on how we function physically. So we can use this to determine what is going on in our brain and what is going on in our spirit. So what I'm essentially saying is that your body is like a lie detector. It will manifest what's going on. It does the will of your spirit and your soul. So if something's going wrong in your soul, it's going to manifest in your body. So we can look at our body, and we can look at what's going on in our head. We can use our frontal lobe to stand outside of ourselves and look at what's going on in our head in order to determine what is toxic and what we need to fix up. So we are a triune being. We have a spirit, which is the true you. We live in a body. The body expresses the spirit and the soul, and we have our soul, which is the intellect, the will, and the emotions. Now we're going to be talking a lot about the soul realm, but also the link between the body and the spirit. Now, your gift that God has placed within you, He has wired. He said, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. So He decided He needed you, and we see this needing of us. He understands us, so He created us and cared for us, and He wires this into the way that our brain works. So every single brain on the planet that ever was and ever will be and ever currently is has the same basic structures, but the connections, the way it is wired, the uniqueness comes in the unique way that the nerve cells actually connect and talk to each other. So our gift that God has wired into us, which makes us unique, is the way in which we think. And the way in which we think, something so simple but so profound, the way in which we think will then influence the decisions that we make, will influence the choices we make, will influence the things that we do and the things that we say. So if we are operating in our gifting, we are going to be making good decisions, and we're going to be manifesting this through what we do in our life. So we can look at what we're doing to determine if we're operating in our gift. So our gift is, as I said, something so simple yet so profound. It is the way in which we think. Each of us has a pre-wired unique way, and we're going to see that this has an actual structure. And it sounds so simple, but it's so incredibly brilliant, because behind behind everything that you do, everything that you say is first a thought. You didn't come here tonight to just see, you thought about it first. Everything that you do in your daily life 24 hours a day, everything that we are doing all the time for the viewers out there, everything that you are doing, every single thought that is first the thing that will precede the action. Okay, so the thoughts are very, very powerful. So in other words, our thoughts will determine everything about who we are. And that thinking is what is unique. Each of us thinks differently. So each of you listening to me now will be perceiving what I'm saying in your own unique way, with your own unique structure, with your own unique decisions and how you process this information. And that the way in which you think pulls it all together. Now for years, what we've had is that scientists have been looking for what they call the G factor. The G factor is what we call the genius factor, or the gift factor. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to see if that in the brain, is there something inside here that is special, that if we switch it on more, it's going to make us more of a genius. And what they naturally do is look at people's brains that have obviously died, otherwise they can't cut them up. And they also look at currently, with using the current brain imaging techniques, we can look inside a brain while a person is thinking and see what's going on inside there. But there's this search that there must be something different about a brain of someone who achieves. And an interesting story is about Einstein. When Einstein died, the doctor who did his autopsy actually stole his brain. And his motive was good, but I mean, his way he did it wasn't so great. But he stole his brain and he preserved it and did all he had to do. And his whole idea was to try and understand this G factor. What was it that made Einstein different? And then to research that and then take this out and say, this is how we become a genius. But the researchers have actually missed it, because yes, Einstein's brain, as they've researched it, does look different. It does have different structures, but it's not the difference in his structures that is the reason for his genius. It was the way that he thought. And if you read any of his biographies, or if you look at some of the statements he said, when he was asked in 1905, when he wrote 6 papers and he discovered E equals MC squared and all the things that he did, he was asked, how did you do this? And he said, I don't know. I looked up to heaven and God showed me. And he said that knowledge is limited, but it's through the power of imagination that we really achieve something in life. And he said that when he's asked to describe his own thinking, he said, well, I actually imagine and then I logically work it out. And he discovered E equals MC squared when he was imagined himself riding on a light beam up into the universe one day, and yet that's how he imagined it. In other words, the G factor is not a place in the brain. It is the result of the way he thought. Einstein thought in a very unique way. No one ever thought like Einstein, but no one's ever going to think like you. So Einstein is no better than what you are. You are just different. You would be a lousy Einstein, but he would be a lousy you. And this is what we need to remember when we look to people and look to giftedness and we start thinking, hey, I want to be like that, and we try and aspire to that. You're going to make a mess, because God has placed all you need inside your brain to be the best you that you can be. That is a scientific fact. It's a spiritual fact. It's what God has been telling us all these years. But somehow through the ages, we've been convinced that we need to have X body, X face, X hair, and X kind of whatever, G-spot, genius, to be a G factor, to be able to actually function at the level we're supposed to be functioning at. But the truth is that each of us is gifted. Each thought that you are now having, and each word that I am speaking, those are original. No one's ever going to think those thoughts that we're thinking and speak the words that I'm speaking now, because they are my words, and your thoughts, my thoughts. We are unique, and this is a scientific fact, and I find that incredibly exciting. So you're not a label. We very often fall under the thing that we're a school. And you get an IQ test done, or you get a personality test done, or you get a profile you have to fill in at work, or your children get certain grades at school. And we use these as labels. Well, that I'm gifted, that one's not gifted, she's not so gifted, he's not so clever, his IQ is this. You are not your school. That simply was a pen and paper test that you did at that time in your life. And the circumstances of your life were X, and that was reflected in that school. You are not your school. You are the way that God made you. You have a unique way of thinking, and that is your gift. And if you use that, the most amazing things happen in your brain. What the scientists have found is that your brain changes and grows. We have this concept called neuroplasticity, the scientific fact called neuroplasticity, which means that your brain changes as you're thinking. So as you're listening to me now, your brain is changing. You're going to hear me teaching you a lot about this. So you're growing little branches to hold the words that I'm saying. And as you are thinking according to your gifting, as you process information, as you think clearly, what will happen is that your brain actually increases in function. You get more intelligent, you get wiser. Now, I find this also very exciting, the fact that when you discover your sequence, when you understand how you think, when you understand the actual structure of your thought life, that you actually have control. You see, we are not victims of our biology. We are not at the control of of the labels out there. You are your own unique person that God has wired you in a specific way, and you need to understand that structure and use that structure. When you do, your brain changes. Einstein's brain, what they found is that this area over here in his brain, this little line over here, kind of popped out. And they found that it was very bulky, this middle part of his brain over here, very, very bulky. And they thought, well, maybe that was, a problem. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe we're supposed to have popped out brains. But that's not the case. Let me tell you that this was because he was thinking that he grew branches and his brain changed shape. And that's what happens. As you go through life, your brain changes. And as you experience life, your brain changes. You may be wondering why I have this funny looking spiky thing here and a plant here. Well, I want us to use our imagination, and throughout these 4 segments I'm going to be referring to these 2 images. But this is a good, healthy memory, and this is a toxic memory. Okay, so this is the negative one and this is the positive one. And what happens in life is that we have a combination of these inside of our brain, and what we can do is we can wire in that direction and we can rewire that in this direction. So good can become bad, bad can become good, and vice versa. We're in control of that. We make our own decisions about these things, and a lot of this stuff becomes a gift blocker. A lot of these become gift blockers and block our ability to function in the way that we're supposed to function. If I think according to my gift, if I think clearly, I'm going to be making good wisdom choices, and this will be manifesting, as I said, through the body, in what we do and what we say and how we function. But if I'm going to be controlled by these things, by toxic thoughts, which become gift blockers, I will not think clearly and I will not operate in the wisdom that God has designed, and it will then influence the way that I function. But fortunately, we can rewire these things. So we have 7 pillars of thought. In the next session, I'm going to give you a lot of detail about this, but just watch this incredible principle. Our brain is divided into 7 basic areas, okay? And I call these 7 types of thought. Now, we also have this, one of my favorite scriptures, and I always say that about all the scriptures because every scripture is my favorite scripture, but here's one of my favorite scriptures. Okay, so Proverbs 9 verses 1 to 6 talks about wisdom. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her house on 7 pillars. Okay, she has slaughtered her beasts, she has mixed her wine, she has also set her table, she has sent out her young, and so it goes on to describe a banquet. Now, the point I'm making over here is wisdom has built her house as she has hewn her 7 pillars. We have in the brain 7 neurological pillars that form the basic elements of how we think. When I talk about your gift is a mixture of those 7. So neurologically or scientifically, wisdom will come from when I think according to my combination of these 7 pillars, the detail of which I'll be telling you in the second session. But wisdom also comes in spiritually in the same concept. There's 7 pillars. Wisdom is something that you build. You don't have it instantly. It's something that you acquire and you develop through life. As we go through life, we build it. So it takes time, it takes effort, renewing of the mind, building knowledge, learning, going to university. All these things take time. So wisdom builds over time, and it takes effort. And the house of wisdom is built on 7 pillars. So I found that really interesting that we have a spiritual and neurological parallel. And as I said just now, you can rewire. You're in control. You're not the victim. You're not the victim of your genes. You see, your genes play a role in your body, but those genes do nothing until you tell them what to do. So we have a factor over and above the genes, and that is what I call the I factor. And we actually will control how our genes express themselves. Now, when we talk about genetic expression, basically what genes do is they make proteins, and proteins are building blocks. So if I'm going to be, as you're listening to me now, you're thinking. So as you're thinking, okay, so these thoughts are going in your head and you're building memories. And you have memories of what happened yesterday and the day before and the rest of your life. So what's happened is that proteins had to be made to grow branches. We don't want a toxic one. We'll talk about a nice one. To grow branches that to hold the information. So like I have the leaves over here, this is the information on my branches. So I grow branches to hold the incoming information. So our thoughts look like these trees, and this is what we're aiming for. And we can rewire between the two. We're going to see how to do that. So your brain has this incredible ability. We in actual fact are all plasticians because we rewire our own brain. I can give you information. You can go to a lecture, you can go to church, you can go wherever, you can get information, your brain will start rewiring, but ultimately you make the decision about whether you're going to retain that information and turn that into a permanent memory. For the next 48 hours, the things that I'm telling you are going to be in temporary memory. So until you consolidate them, they'll be there, but while you're sleeping tomorrow night, if you haven't thought about this or spoken about these concepts to someone or done something with this, the chances are you'll lose up to 75% of what you're hearing. And these branches basically go away. So we have a responsibility to basically rewire and consolidate the information that's coming at us. We are in control of that. Now, if we're thinking clearly with lots of these thoughts, we'll be functioning in our gifting, and we'll be building wisdom. When we're operating in these, we're going to have a lot of gift blockers. So basic brain structures are the same for each of us, but the way that these branches connect, to each other, the way we grow branches, the way each of you is growing a branch now to build or process what I'm telling you, that's totally unique. No two people are going to grow the same looking tree. They'll look similar, but the connections, so what we call the connective architecture, that is different for each person. And that comes from this unique way that we think, the unique way that we process information. Okay, so now there's a wonderful principle here, and God was really gracious. He's lavish, he's generous, and he's been incredibly generous in the way that he's explained or built the human brain. And that is that the more you use your brain, the more intelligent you become. The more you use your gift, the more branches you will grow. The more branches you have, the thicker and more dense your branches are, and the more the branches connect to other networks in the brain, the more intelligent you're becoming. But it's also use it or lose it. So if you don't use your gift, and we see this in the parable of the talents, if you don't use your gift, your brain shifts down to default mode. So you rewire in a negative direction. We call this also a plastic paradox, in that the way that we build a good memory and a toxic memory is the same physiological process, but it's got slightly different chemicals attached. So that's why a toxic memory looks different to a healthy memory. But the fact is that we are in control of that process, and we can, the more we use that, the bigger it will get. And then it will dominate you. The more we use this, the bigger it will get and dominate us. So we're going to learn about how to identify these, get rid of them, and be able to turn them into these, because these block our gifts. But before we can do that, we're going to have to actually understand a bit more about the structure of our gift and how it works and how to identify those. So just to wrap up this session, the I factor, you play the role. You are center stage in this whole process. We can give you information, but you are the one who thinks about the information. You're the one who will make the decisions about what to do with the information. And you're the ones that will influence the changes and the rewiring that occurs in the brain. So it's up to you to take the gift that God has hardwired. He has hardwired a gift into your brain, because we spoke earlier, your true you is your spirit. It's wired into your soul, and then our body will manifest that. It does the will of the spirit and the soul. So God said, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb, and you are uniquely, fearfully and wonderfully made. And that is the truth. That is the truth. It's in here, it's wired, but you have to take this and use it. And the more you use it, the more intelligent you become. So this is just an artist, just to wrap up. This is an artist's rendition of an actual slide of what it looks like inside the brain, obviously magnified a lot. And this, what I call the spaghetti and meatballs images, what the children call it, and I thought that's such a great thing to call it, because it looks like meatballs and spaghetti. But that's memories. You're looking at your thought life. It looks a bit of a mess, but fortunately there's order in that chaos, because you have 100 billion nerve cells more or less in your brain, and your brain's about the size, and the nerve cells are growing branches for your whole life. So yeah, it looks like that, but there's order, because God always has order. But we mess it up. So that's a really strong memory over there. That's a strong, the more branches, the more dense, the more wise that memory. But we can turn that into a toxic one. We can change it. We can make those into one of those toxic memories, and that's not good. Those block our gifts. Your gift is your unique piece of eternity, your unique piece of infinity. Now, how can I say that? Look at what it says in Ecclesiastes 3:11. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also planted eternity in men's hearts and minds, a divinely implanted sense of a purpose working through the ages, which nothing under the sun but God alone can satisfy. Yet so that men cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. So he has made everything beautiful. He has planted eternity in men's hearts and minds, a divinely implanted sense of purpose. You have a gift. He planted in your head and he said, here, I give it to you. Now it's up to you. I've designed your brain in such a way that you take your gift, you take this piece of eternity. God is eternity. He is infinity. We're made in his image. So he's given us a piece of perfection, a piece of eternity. He gives it to us, and it's up to us to go out there and use it. So he's telling us, go out there and become a designer babe. Thank you.
For more information, write Life Outreach International, P.O. Box 982,000, Fort Worth, Texas 76182, or call the prayer line at 1-817-685-5000. You can also visit us on the web at lifetoday.org or drleaf.net.